Back propagation, we will make it a back propagation. It's at some search point ds, and we will write it. In terms of u and wl. These choices. So 1 over n, the sum of p equal 1 of l equal 1 to capital N exponential minus 2a k0. Let me write it first and then discuss it. Theta L ds, and you have this so I will call it a wl ul, where here for back propagation you choose my formula was before writing this. Maybe I have it still. No. Before writing this, there was here a graded WL, okay, or WL prime, and then I can take WL prime whatever I want. Okay, so if we take WUL, so I call this E U WL UL is the sum on the omega U minus UL normal derivative of this guy, right? These are my measurements, and I make a weight of my measurements using WL. Okay, if I choose UWL equal to UL equal to exponential ek0 theta L dot x, then I form back propagation by multiplying this quantity by exponential. This quantity is computed from the data. This one computed from the data. The boundary data. Okay, it's here. These are the data. U is computed with the G equal normal derivative of this guy. You multiply by WL and you choose WL is this one. Okay, and then you multiply by exponential minus 2ak0 theta L ds. If you look at what it is, this guy, let's forget about the magnetic part. Keep this only this part. It's something like 1 over n, some constants, L from 1 to n, exponential a what 2 k0 theta L d minus ds, and sum on p, and there are some constants. That's all. Okay, but when you make now we have so we will keep this one. Let's make it p equal 1 just to see what is the formula. So for p equal 1, this is for p equal 1, this is 1 over n sum L equal 1 to n exponential 2i k0 theta L times d minus ds. This is the point you are looking for, and this is your search point. But we know that if theta L are equidistributed and n is large, this is like what? This is like a sinc function in dimension 3. And like a g0 to k0 d minus ds in dimension 2. This is the special function. You are done. because the maximum of sinc function is at ds equals z. The maximum of g0 to k0 d minus ds is at ds equals z. So you are done. And if there are many points, then this is just the sum p from 1 to p sinc. Let's write it into in 3 dimensions. Some constant cp to p dp minus ds. This is your imaging function ebp of ds. Can this make imaging? Of course, if the inclusion and are separated. Because assume that z1 is here, z2 is here. If you represent this function, it's maximum here and it's maximum here. There is a peak around z1 and there is a peak around z2. If the distance between z1 and z2 is larger than half the wavelength, 2 pi over 2k0, this is pi over k0, then you can distinguish between the two peaks. If not, then you cannot distinguish. So this is the resolution limit. This minimum distance that allow you to distinguish between the two peaks. Okay, so I can make it a little bit more formal. So if you think about so the 2 pi over k0, this is diffraction limit or Rayleigh limit. This is classical one, diffraction limit, or it's the same as Rayleigh resolution limit. So when you use waves, this is the limit you get through the dipole approximation. Through the first approximation, this is the limit. Okay, if your signal to noise ratio is very high, then you may get better resolution, but it's not because of it's nothing else than because you have a very good signal. You have very good signal. You don't have only the first approximation of your inclusion. You have the dipole approximation of your inclusion and the quadruple approximation of your inclusion, and then you can beat this resolution limit. It's not because of algorithms. There is a huge confusion actually. So some people thought that this music get behind the diffraction limit, which is completely wrong, I think, because the diffraction limit is there. So it gets behind, any algorithm gets behind the diffraction limit if it uses more than the dipole approximation. Dipole approximation is associated to the diffraction limit. If the data is good, then of course you will observe diffraction limit, unless you did something poor with your data. But if you use them carefully, then it's guaranteed. So just to make it the resolution limit more clear. So if you look at what's this system, what's this imaging function? Is this a convolution with this kernel? So imaging function, the image you are reconstructing is convolution with the sinc kernel. So assume that you have image called I will call A like image, and you have image true. And what you want to reconstruct is image true, but what you get from the data is the reconstruction and its convolution with some kernel. It's image true convolution with H. H here is the sky. H D ds. This is the convolution kernel. It's just a sinc and a G0. If your true image is a delta function, then your reconstructed image is the plot of H. It's a delta convoluted with H. It's the plot of H. So H is called PSF. And P is for not probability, but it's for point spread function. So it's point, and this is spread, and this is function. And it's clear from here. Take a delta function, it spreads. It's not the perfect image would be delta function. You see it like a delta function. This is perfect. This is infinite resolution. But in your resolution, in your imaging system, like this is exactly what our imaging system. My output is this one. This is my output. This is my output from the data. I have data. I have true image, and this is my reconstructed image. And my reconstructed image, if I link it to the true image, it's convolution with this kernel. When the true image is delta function, here I see sinc function. Okay. So when you have 2 points, Z1 and Z2, you represent PSF at Z1, and you represent PSF at Z2, and the resolution limit is the distance from which these two merge. Then you will say that there is only 1 point and not 2. So the distance from which PSF Z1 merge with PSF Z2. This you can think about it. This is the mathematical definition of resolution. So this is the smallest distance from which you can see two points. Okay. Okay. So this is my back propagation algorithm. I can write down Kirchhoff one. So Kirchhoff would use the whole matrix, but it's so this here we have used that W. Yeah. We have used WL equal UL is exponential to form image back propagation image. Okay, but we can use UL equal to exponential EK0 theta L prime of X, and then we form a matrix. And actually using the eigenvalue, using the whole matrix, we can write down Kirchhoff. We can write down subspace migration algorithms. So migration algorithm or subspace migration algorithms. So we will use migration form the matrix A. I was introducing AL prime by choosing UL, this exponential, or the Green function, right? And WL prime is equal to the C W exponential EK theta L prime X. You will get a matrix, and now Kirchhoff image at DS would be projection of the function, the Green function G. So G. So these vectors, they are the DS bar A G GS GS, and you sum from G equal 1 to D plus 1. If you don't know whether they are magnetic or electric, you have to use all of these functions. They were here. Okay. And you project them on A. If you use the whole matrix, this is Kirchhoff. If you use only singular values, singular vectors, first singular vectors, so this is Kirchhoff, because it uses whole matrix. But then you can make a subspace migration by using image space of A, range of A. Okay, you can project these vectors on the range of A. You will get subspace. You can make weight like last time. Make a projection, but with some weight, and you can try to choose the weight, and actually will end up exactly with the same. It depends on how you are choosing the weight. It's either music or reverse time migration. Okay. So you will end up with exactly the same subspace migration. You can write what is E-music. Okay, E-music is the projection on the 1 over the projection on the noise, and actually, if mu p are equal to mu 0, you have one vector here. So you will get this. You don't sum, but you use G equal TD D plus 1. It corresponds to permittivity inclusions. If you know that all the inclusions in the domain are permittivity inclusions, there is no magnetic inclusions, then E Kirchhoff would be projection of G D plus 1. G D plus 1 was what? Was exponential E K0 theta 1 times ds exponential E K0 theta n times ds. This is a G D plus 1. Then, if in that case there is a relation, explicit relation between music and Kirchhoff, and it's nonlinear. So it's given by this this guy to the power -2 minus identity times some constant is equal Kirchhoff migration. That's all. Okay. So all of them are somehow very similar. So this is similar class of subspace migration algorithms. Okay. The only one which is depends on a nonlinear way is music, but because of the construction, you don't make projection, but you make 1 over the projection, 1 minus the projection. Okay, that's why it's nonlinear. Okay, now you can write down. So no questions.
Frequency is varying.
Of course, no. When you fix this is the argument at single frequency. Now, if you have a range of if you have all the frequencies, then you have infinite resolution. I will show it. Maybe either this afternoon or tomorrow, because this resolution is function of the frequency. Here you have K0 is just omega square root of epsilon 0 mu 0. So if you have a broad range of frequencies, you have infinite resolution. Okay. Which is not completely clear is assume that you have multi-frequency measurements at many frequencies. You have this was a single frequency omega 1, frequency omega 2, frequency omega n. How to combine these measurements in an optimal way? Okay, so for Kirchhoff, just make the sum. You can make some weights. But for music, because it's nonlinear, it's unclear what to do. And one more tricky thing is you may think that I think maybe there is a discussion in this notes. There is a discussion about this multi-frequency case. You may think that the best would be to use the highest one. because the highest one gives you the best resolution. But actually, using many of these frequencies is you can average the noise. You can enhance the signal to noise ratio. So if you have many, if you do the same thing many times, it's better to use all the measurements, because it automatically enhances by some factor, square root of the number of measurements, it enhances the signal to noise ratio. So if you have many measurements at multiple frequencies, it's not clear whether the highest one gives you better result than just averaging, because averaging will enhance the signal to noise ratio, and the last one will give you the best resolution. So it depends on what you want. If you want it stable and not extremely resolved, then averaging is better. So this is for measurement noises, because measurement noises are independent from the frequency. You can assume that this is independent from the frequency. So measurement noises are independent. So summing all of this data over frequencies will enhance. But if they are coming from medium noise, they are correlated. And then summing could be a disaster. There's some discussion there, because then the noise is correlated, it would be better to keep the correlated the coherent part of the signal. Okay. And then okay, so there is let me go back to this one. For single frequency, there is at given frequency there is nonlinear relationship between music algorithm and Kirchhoff algorithm. Music algorithm is you project over the first singular the image space, but you make one over the projection. Okay, so this relation is trivial actually because of this. Okay, now when you have noise, what to do? When you have noise, you want to which so in the presence of noise, so A would be the measurement would be what? Would be A0. Think about the matrix. I constructed this one. This one would be A0. So asymptotic formula. This one would be A0. Perfect one. Plus some measurement noise, plus some approximation error, because A0 I used to get A0 I used the dipole approximation. So even without noise there is approximation error. Okay. So the measurement noise, as I said, is Gaussian. Which case is interesting when the measurement noise when the measurement noise dominates the approximation error, or when the approximation error dominates the measurement noise. Which case is more interesting? The Gaussian measurement noise dominates the approximation error. Otherwise, we will neglect it. This one will dominates this one, so we neglect it. Okay. Otherwise, it's this measurement noise is like approximation error. Nothing to do. Okay, it's symmetric. It means 0. Actually, it's symmetric. It's not clear because there is no reason for noise to be symmetric as a matrix. But you symmetrize. If your matrix is symmetric, usually it's a reciprocity principle. This perfect data is symmetric usually because of reciprocity. You change the receiver and the source, it will give you the same signal. Okay, even in the presence, this is what we proved. We proved it when we have complicated medium. The Green function y and x is the same at or the fundamental solution at x and y for complicated medium. So the medium is the target. You send the signal here to collect it here in the presence of the target. It's the same as sending the signal here and collecting here. It's the same. That's why the matrix is symmetric, perfect matrix. But then you make measurements. So when you take this point here and the receiver is here, or this one here, or the other way, you may make different with another different noise. So it may not be symmetric. So the field is symmetric, but the noise here, noise y of x, and this is one, plus noise from x to y. This one, there is no reason to assume that this is symmetric, but this doesn't matter. You take the data, corrupted by noise, and you make it symmetric. You symmetrize. So you take A plus A transpose 2. And actually, this actually makes you even more happy, because you reduce this will reduce the variance of the off-diagonal terms. By a factor 1 over square root of 2. The variance will be reduced, but not here, not for the diagonal terms. Okay, it will be reduced. So that's why when I was calling this result from random matrix theory, the medium here was with variance 1, and here it was with variance 2. So then we want this is measurement. This is symmetric Gaussian noise with mean value 0, and we want to compute the signal to noise ratio for all of these functions at the true location to see which one is the best. So what's the signal to noise ratio? Signal to noise ratio. So let's take it, compute it for EKM, Kirchhoff, or outright formula. So pick one of this imaging function. Signal to noise ratio is the expectation of the value of the function at the true location, over the variance. Okay, so this gives you what at the true location. You compute your imaging function. You compute it at the true location. Your imaging function is designed in such a way its maximum value is at the true location. Okay. Now you compute its maximum its value at the true location over its square root of its variance. Okay, it gives you how it deviates. It gives you it gives you how this imaging function deviates from the true location. So when you do AKM ZS, you take the argument of this max, argument of the argument which maximizes this one, ZS. This gives you Z reconstructed. Okay? If S, the signal to noise ratio defined in this way, is very large, means what? Means that this Z reconstructed is closer to Z. If it's very low, it means that it may be very far from the Z true. Right? So best imaging function is the one which gets you the highest signal to noise ratio at the true location. Okay? The expectation of the value, because the expectation of the value, this is constructed from random measurements, corrupted by a random noise. So you take the expectation, and then you see how it's not anymore here. This is Z true. You see how large is this one? Okay. So it's very large. That means your localization algorithm is not very good. If it's very sharp, then it gets you Z true. So expectation under standard deviation gives you the localization error, the standard how you deviate standard deviation around the Z true of your imaging function. Okay. So these ones you can compute them by hand actually. They are formula. So let me write signal to noise ratio associated to A Kirchhoff. And the comment it's N K0, the volume of the inclusion. Let's write it only for permittivity contrast. There is no magnetic contrast. All the inclusions have the same magnetic parameter as the background over sigma noise. So sigma noise is the variance. This is the amplitude of this is the amplitude of your noise. So this noise is the sigma noise times W, where W is with variance 1 here and with variance 2 here. Okay, so sigma noise gives you the amplitude of the noise. Okay. So signal to noise ratio is this is amplitude of the noise. So signal to noise ratio of this Kirchhoff migration I just introduced is permittivity contrast over amplitude of the noise. So if the amplitude of the noise is large, then the signal to noise ratio is small. Means that you are in trouble. If the permittivity contrast is large, then the signal to noise ratio becomes higher. The inclusion becomes more visible. It's more contrasted. Okay? If it's if n is large, then the signal to noise ratio is large. Because you have this you are using more receivers and more sources. You enhance the signal to noise ratio. Okay, if the frequency is larger, then the signal to noise ratio is higher. If the size of the inclusion, the volume of the inclusion is larger, it's bigger. it's more visible. And then it's more visible, your algorithm will find it. So signal to noise ratio, this is a formula, and it gives you insights in terms of if the contrast is very small, if this one is close to 1, it's very high. It's very difficult to get the inclusion. If it's too small, then it's very difficult. So actually in imaging system, this is known. You pay 100 euro, and you get a machine with no signal to noise ratio. You pay 1,000, you get a machine with much better signal to noise ratio. This is known. Then, if it's much better, it would detect smaller inclusions. It would detect inclusions with contrast close to 1, very small contrast. It will detect with very few receivers and transmitter. It still work. Okay, because it has a higher signal to noise ratio. So usually this signal to noise ratio is provided for the imaging systems. They estimate it. There are many ways to estimate it. It's not they estimate this, and then you have the imaging, and then these formula can be used to understand the imaging. I don't know what. It's a French word, but it's how small. What's the smallest inclusion that you can image? Because if you are interested in non-destructive testing or medical imaging, you want to image from time to time very small inclusions. So it's in terms of the signal to noise ratio, and you have to derive such a formula. So if they don't say what's the imaging function inside the algorithm, you will never find it, because it's so because signal to noise ratio of here for this very simple examples, this is the one for Kirchhoff. I will give you the one for I have the one for music. Okay, let me give you the one for music. It's different. So for music algorithm, signal to noise ratio of EMU is equal to, same, is defined by the expectation of EMU at G over standard deviation of EMU at the true location, and this is given by this formula: N D K0 epsilon star over epsilon 0 minus 1 sigma noise. It looks N, capital N. It looks exactly the same, but this is if this guy and D K0 epsilon star epsilon 0 minus 1 is much larger. So here we don't know whether it's of higher conductivity, higher permittivity, or smaller permittivity. If this one is larger than sigma noise, and it's 1 if this quantity is much smaller than sigma noise, it gets the basically it gets the same signal to noise ratio, but at the limiting regimes. Okay, it gets the signal to noise ratio when it's very high. If the signal to noise ratio of Kirchhoff is very high, the signal to noise ratio of music is very high. It's the same. But when this one is not too high, this one is disaster. So from this formula, Kirchhoff is clearly better for noisy measurements. If the noise is high, It's clearly better than music. Music is as good as Kirchhoff when the noise is very small. Noise very small, then it's the same. Noise very high, then here you can still detect, and here you can you are unstable. Okay, you are unstable because the variance is getting large, so you don't know where is your inclusion. You put it whatever you want. Okay. So here the peak is affected by the peak of music because the reconstructed location is the argument of the max of the guy, and it's affected by noise more seriously than the other one. And actually we can estimate which algorithm is the best in this sense. And the best is either this one or reverse time migration. Reverse time migration is the best. So we can estimate, actually this is a statement. We can do it for point reflectors. So for point reflectors, in general case it's too complicated. Point reflectors. So point reflectors are something, these are point reflectors. Permittivity contrasts are point reflectors because they are point sources. If they are magnetic, it is more complicated. Structure is more complicated. For point reflectors, so permittivity contrast only. Permittivity contrast only. A reverse migration, a reverse time migration is the most stable. If most stable in sense is minimum variance. In the sense of and this is for least squares problems. It's the same as likelihood, maximum likelihood, because it's least square generalized solution. Okay. So minimum variance is this is stability around the true solution. Okay. Now, this the 10 last minutes. Let me introduce you another one. It's.
So now we are assuming that the Gaussian noise is dominating the approximation.
The approximation.
So yes. There is some limit.
Yes, of course. So it's, if the of course if they contribute in the same way, there is no way to estimate them. So you neglect the approximation error completely, and you think that this is all the error is coming from measurement noise, which is Gaussian. Let me introduce you one more imaging function. So we call it topological derivative, and as far as I can understand, it's not subspace imaging function. Okay, so just to show you that what I was trying to explain here, this subspace imaging functions, they may be other imaging functions. Okay, these are the most used, but they are other than least square. So there is least square, but usually it's time consuming. It may not work. Simplification, and there are other algorithms. And there are other algorithms. Actually, the only one I know who is this topological derivative. So let me show you what is topological derivative. Let me show you the idea actually first. Topological derivative is in our understanding, it's the most close to least square solution. So you have your domain omega. You are looking for the true inclusion is here. True inclusion. This is the true one with conductivity k. Let me make it for wave. With electromagnetic parameters you don't know, and size you don't know. it gives you data. Okay. Now, okay. You can think about making a least square solution. Use this is the one I showed. This one. Okay. Well, here you put the dipole approximation plus point source approximation. You may think about this one. Another way of thinking, it's an optimization point of view. You say, okay, I don't know the z true. I will pick ds, my search point, and I will say, okay, I will put inclusion here. I will take it a circle with some parameter, epsilon star prime, mu star prime. And delta prime, and I will compute the data. Compute it. Will compute the data. If it's matched with the measured, I found my inclusion. Okay. So if this one is the true one, assume that the true one is disk, and for some reason I put this one here, it will give exactly the same data. So it will match. So matching, measured. Matching gives that ds equal z, and I'm done. That actually means even more. It gives the parameters are the same. At least the polarization tensors, you understand? Okay, it gives that the polarization tensors and the electric contrast are the same. I found exactly the right inclusion. Okay, so what you minimize? You minimize the discrepancy over d omega. Measurements are on the boundary. The discrepancy between u measured minus what could be u when you put an inclusion gamma s with parameters blah blah blah. We are minimizing this one. Okay. This is what I did. Okay. I put this here. I choose the parameters. This is least square actually. I put it here, I choose the parameter, I minimize this, put it here, put it here, put it here, put it here. And then I will take the argument of the minimum. So topological derivative is to say something like this. And actually then we can prove that this is correct. Okay. You take this z search here. And then you create small hole, very small. Then if the hole, if zs is close to z, this would decrease when you change the radius. So you compute the derivative of this one with delta prime, with respect to delta prime square, the volume. So you take the derivative of the function with respect to the volume, and this is exactly topological derivative. And you will say that it has sign. If it's negative, then I'm putting the point in the right place, because creating an inclusion there would decrease the discrepancy function. Okay, it's a derivative, so it has to be negative if you want to decrease the discrepancy function. If it's positive, then not. I have to change another. So what you plot on? You plot e topological derivative of ds. This is function. You plot it everywhere, and you take its the most negative value. The most negative value. People was arguing that the most negative value is the location of the inclusion. Okay, so that's it. So why this is correct, almost. So we know what is U measurement. asymptotically, using this asymptotic formula for small volume expansions. We know what it is. We know what it is, this one, asymptotically. So we can compute this difference almost exactly, up to some error in terms of the volume of this one, and the true inclusion, and the volume delta and delta prime. Then we can take the derivative, and then we can check whether this is true. This statement, sign negative is yes, the inclusion is there. Sign positive, the inclusion is not there. Okay. So when you do this, you end up with something interesting. I will stop in 5 minutes. You will end up with actually what you end up with this thing. You end up with compute this W, which is Helmholtz equation inside omega, and which is in the boundary it equal to U minus U measurement. These are your measurements, and this is the background solution without inclusion. So this W, you can compute it. And if you take it bar here, then this W is nothing else than back propagating the measurements. W back propagate the error term. This is the error. This is the difference between your U measurement and the background solution. You compute, you solve the equation, so measurements are here. Okay? You don't know U measurements inside. But you can back propagate by solving the equation with just bar on the data. Okay? You back propagate, you find W. So this derivative is almost this derivative. If you compute it using this small volume expansion formula, it's almost gradient of the background solution at ds times gradient of W at ds. So what you are doing is just this one is cross correlating the back propagation of the error with the background field, and this guy is maximal at ds equals z. Then you find your z. Okay, so maximal, take a minus here. So it's about exactly the same. Getting here, it's the minus sign is the most negative. You take the most negative here, take minus here, you take the most positive. So cross correlating the back propagation of the error term with the background solution give you a very good imaging function. And actually this is the most stable with respect to medium noise. So let me discuss medium noise. Why is this? Because this is cross correlation. Medium noise, it manifests itself by random perturbation of the trouble type. So random perturbation of the phase. But here you have random perturbation of the phase, bar, and here you have random perturbation of the phase. So you have cancellation of this first perturbation. So this function is quite robust with respect to medium noise, which is not the case of Kirchhoff. Kirchhoff is not robust with respect to medium noise. It's robust with respect to measurement noise, with respect to Gaussian noise. But Kirchhoff is based on the phase. So if the phase is incorrectly computed or incorrectly back propagated, then it's incorrect. So it's very sensitive to medium noise. All the algorithms I explained are very sensitive to medium noise. But this one is cross correlation of data corrupted by noise and background solution corrected by noise. Cross correlation will cancel the error and the time and the trouble time Okay. This is almost correct. Almost correct because because this is boundary. When you do asymptotic expansions here, it's you need what? Asymptotic expansion here. You need the Newman boundary, Newman nk0 or n omega k0. This is the solution of the Newman function of Helmholtz equation. You will express the measurements in terms of the n function and this u, the data, in terms of the n function. Then, if you cross-correlate this one, it will give you, this one will give you gradient of n, where I put omega here, k0 bar omega k0, this one on x and zs, and this one on x and z for many x. Okay, x on the boundary. And this is integral for d sigma x. This is there is no Kirchhoff-Helmholtz identity for n. This has not maximum. This one is not maximum when z equals zs. It has a completely strange behavior. It depends on the boundary. Depends on this one. Okay. So in order to get and to make ourselves happy, gamma here, this is Helmholtz-Kirchhoff equation, and this is maximum for z equals zs. It has then you have to post-processing the data. So here you apply. There is a relation between gamma k0 and n. And what is the relation? So this is xg bar, and this is xgs gradient. So this is the formula here. Okay. There is a formula between gamma and n. We know that what we know. We know that 1/2 minus k omega of n equal gamma k0. Right? So we are done. So here we post-processing by applying some operator, this integral operator. So we have data, we apply this operator, and it turns out that this is nothing else than gradient gamma k0, gradient gamma k0 bar at xg and xgs, and then we are done. So this is kind of least square, but with a right derivative with respect to the volume. Okay, it gets you the inclusion, and when you get the inclusion, then you can find the magnetic contrast, polarization tensor for the magnetic contrast, and you can find the permittivity contrast times the volume. You go back to the asymptotic expansion, and then it's finding just numbers, which is very easy. Okay, thank you.